Fellas?
Good morning.
Yeah, and here we are, the Mood House, the men in the Mood House, and we're continuing our discussion with what is a man. We are now in the 11th week of this study as we are looking at snapshots out of Jacob's life and taking what we've learned in his journey and tracking it through with a graph that I'm going to show you in just a minute. We are over here now looking at this grouping. Jacob has transitioned into the second, what we call the second half of life that we've looked at. And here's that slide that I was referring to. This is like the master slide. We look at this every week. But Jacob is now in this section right here. Our focus area is right in here. He's transitioned over, and he's in this wavy or this very kind of erratic line that we're going to talk about. So there's some high points in here. This is review. Jacob, what allowed him to move into that second phase of life. And this is, guys, this is by way of my thoughts. I'm not alone in this thinking, but I think there comes a point in a man's life where he must embrace his own limits. And that was expressed in Jacob's life through his ability to humble himself and express his fear. He was able to interpret his action of fleeing Haran, and then when his father-in-law ran him down and said, "What on earth were you thinking?" Rather than the default mode of us men is to point blame and create excuse, he owned his actions and was able to identify that course of action that he did as a result from his own fear. I look at that as huge. And in a man's life, when we are able to get to that point where we embrace our limits through acknowledgement of our own weaknesses and our own pain, our own frailties, we move into this second phase of life, which is a huge blessing. The alternative to that is this other faded line, you can barely see it, where we continue to ascend and we just don't get it. And the end therein for that man is the old fool. He never is able to understand and move into this realm because he's still trying to become something or someone. So anyway, that's what allowed him to move, and that is in Genesis 31:31. Then he reaches out, and this is review. He reaches out to his brother Esau because soon after a man is able to embrace his own limits, he starts to understand how his actions and thoughts have affected other people around him. And this, again, is my opinion. But he soon thereafter, and the question mark here is we don't know when that is, but he sends a messenger to his brother Esau to make amends of the past of his actions and the ramifications of those actions on his brother. So he does that, and then I think this period culminates, and this is this is moving into that next phase of life here. But that, I think where we're going in this, we haven't looked at this yet, but where Jacob meets his brother and the narrative in the text that leads up to that is just amazing. And that's what we're going to be looking at in the next few weeks. It culminates with the wrestling of God. I mean, he is in some big time spiritual battle, transformation, and it is a huge time in his life, and we're going to be looking at that in the next few weeks. So that's where we're at in this grouping. And so then the question is, why this line? Why this erratic line? Why have I depicted this phase of life, which is called life pushing in, as this kind of line? It's because as you and I look at this, and many of you have gone through this or are in this time of life, life is erratic. Life is hard, like I've heard someone say, and so this line depicts that there are ups and there are downs, and we're trying to figure this whole thing out. I've also called this period of time shades of gray. It's where things become really foggy. It's where expectations of where I thought I would be at this time in life is not working out. It's where expectations of where I thought my children would be is not working out. It's where disappointment over where I thought our marriage would be is not working out. And it's the brutal realities of where life is. And it is a very, very difficult time. I can remember being at Council Tree Covenant, and I don't know how many years ago, let's say 10 years ago, I don't know. And where I was very much feeling this, and we it was Christmas time, and our pastor said, okay, kind of the morning icebreaker, I don't know why he has it. He says, tell the person next to you what you want for Christmas. And without skipping beat, this woman, and I know who she is, I don't know her name, she said, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, relief. She was taken back. I said, I would like a period of relief. Life is, to think of the old term, life sucks right now. And you guys understand what I'm talking about. I would just like some relief. And she looked at me and she says, I hope you get relief. Well, yeah, well, eventually, yes. But so Jacob's relationship with this line, what does this line have to do with our person Jacob here? And in my opinion, I see Jacob, and it correlates to you and I. This time of life, we are caught between two major ideas, two major forces. Jacob's capacity to embrace his limit, like we've seen here. It's a capacity. Think of it as a capacity, something enlarging. And now this is me talking, and although I'm not alone in this thought, but I feel that our capacity as a human being, as a man, as one who is growing, we would call it transforming into the image of Christ, one who has then more compassion and can be a blessing rather than a pain in the butt to those around them, a person that is being transformed into Christ. That comes through, I believe, understanding our limits, which is so counterintuitive. We think that our capacity to bless and to be effective with people around us is directly correlated to our abilities, to our competencies, to our smartness. But I am proposing to you that is not the case. It's as we become aware of our limits, we actually become way more effective with other people and our power to bless. Any comments on that? Dave, I see you engaged in that. So,
Well, yeah, it would be a personal thing, and I don't mind sharing the personal, but I don't want to express this without you guys understanding that it's because what Mike says is true, not because of what I'm going to say, because it's going to sound a little bit like a commercial almost.
oh,
What I went through in a lot of this, I started as a funeral director in 1966, and within 3 or 4 years, I had multiple people expressing to me how very good I was at what I did.
yeah, that's,
And you know how great it was and all the rest of this, and my reaction was, well, yeah, it's my job, so you know I do it well. And I'm not going to go through the
yeah.
75-minute version of this, but 40 years later, a lot of water under the bridge and an opportunity to actually go back into funeral service after having been gone for 30 some odd years. What I learned in the meantime, directly related to what Mike is saying, is I had realized that what I was doing and how I was doing it wasn't because of who I was or what I was doing, it's what God had gifted me to do. And that's an entirely different perspective. And it took me many, many years to discover that the reason I'm very good at what I do is because that's the way God has wired me to do that. And that's part of what Mike is saying. Until we learn who we are gifted in Him, we're over here doing our own thing, and that's where the pushing and shoving. But if we lie back and let Him be the guide and the energy and the wisdom and everything else, then fruit can really be born. And I just wish I had that maturity in other elements of my life as well. In that particular element, tremendously powerful truth.
It is, and thank you for. And I wish we had the time for the full story, because it's your story is such a great story. The Allnut piece that was just kind of and being let go from that and going into this period of time and now being brought back. It's a great story. And we as men, and I think as human beings, as we look at a timeline like this, we want to, I've gone through that. I know what that's all about. But I would say, guys, not so fast. There is a constant transformation going on in our lives. And where we think we might be through it, that may not be so. And we may have more to learn in this whole process. And as we age and as we develop, we need to understand that we are we become more and more responders to what is under God's kingdom control and power, rather than initiators in trying to make it happen. And becoming aware of that through understanding my limits is an extremely freeing and powerful doorway into being a blessing to other people, is what we're trying to say. So capacity to embrace. The other force active in this stage of Jacob's life is his ability to relinquish control. And that is, again, an ongoing challenge that you and I will face. I can honestly say I have a greater ability now at 64 to relinquish control than I did 5 years ago, say, or 2 years ago. But it is not perfect, and there are still great challenges in relinquishing control. And as we are, I think what happens is our awareness increases. We're able to be more in touch with the occasion at hand, and saying, I'm trying to take control. I need to relinquish control at this moment. Does that make sense? Yeah. We just become more aware. Now, whether we act on that is our choice. And as we relinquish control, it really enacts this capacity to be a blessing. Again, it's counterintuitive. We think that taking control is what it's all about. But it's really about relinquishing control. And as we look at the example as demonstrated through Jesus Christ, we should, well, obviously, it's relinquishing control. So, those are the two forces, and I call them tensions. Jacob is in this tension between the two forces, and the line represents what that looks like as that is being acted out in this man's life and in your life and mine. As we are faced with limitation, as we are faced with our with the relinquishing of control, the opportunities to do that, it looks like this. It is not easy. It is not easy. And what this tension creates in this man's life is this: fear. It's fear. And I think that is the rudimentary reaction that you and I face as we are in this tension. Fear. And that fear causes us to want to hold on, whereas we are called to let go. Okay, so remember the box? The box that we looked at 2 weeks ago, or 2 times ago, is life happens in a box. Because what we're talking about correlates exactly with this. And that you and I are moving around in this box and following the arrows. We have an opportunity for growth. And because what we do, we want to grow. We want to come out here because we're made in the image of God. So the greater pull, the grand adventure we all say we want. But when that opportunity comes our way, we move towards the only way out, this what I call the threshold of fear, and our tendency is to clamp in fear. It is to fear because we're in that tension. Fear raises up, even though we're not aware of it. We can't identify it. As we learn our limits, we can. And then that drives us back into rationalization, where we use our Bible knowledge in the context of this group as far as Christians. We tend to use verses and things that rationalize our position, and then what that does is it gives us this illusion of control, that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and then we find ourselves then right back to here. So we go around in life, we think we're growing, we're really not growing. We're stuck in a box, and it's because of fear. And the only thing that can overcome fear is when we drew this a couple weeks ago is the word trust here. Trust in Christ that He will catch us. And as we move, trust transcends fear, and we can move out and we can grow.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
I can't resist your graphic, the me. Me doesn't know who me is.
Right. Me is blurry. We're trying to define me.
Which reminds me of you know what, right? Be who you is.
Yeah.
Because if you try to be who you ain't, then you ain't who you is.
Fuzzy bear philosophy, yes. And that is so true. And then when we looked at this, it was in the context of ascent and how the young man is trying to define who they are. So that's why the me is there. But as we move out, me becomes more in focus.
Also, Mike, a quick on that previous slide, your use of the word opportunity and fear, and so on. Years ago, when doing a seminar, I came across something, and I forget what language group it's in. I think it may have been Chinese. The translation in that particular language for the word crisis is dangerous opportunity.
Oh wow, really?
Sort of ties into your box
Yeah.
there.
That's good, yeah, dangerous opportunity. We look at it as opportunity, I mean, those are two conflicting terms.
Right,
Yeah,
but a lot of opportunity does feel like danger.
yeah,
I mean, it's disguised, so to speak.
Yeah,
as danger.
I would venture to say every time. There's a fear factor. So what I'd like you to do in the time remaining, we got about 10 minutes, is at your tables. Which of the 5 terms that we've looked at this morning and in the last time we were together, which of these 5 terms can you most relate to at this time of your life? Notice I've got the mini graphic of the box here. Embracing your limits, we talked about that. We could also, we didn't mention this morning, but it has the idea of facing our pain in life. And that is directly correlated to understanding our limits. Is just getting in touch, embracing limits, which allows us to move into this next phase of life. Relinquishing control, fear, new awareness, rationalization. So pick one of those 5 terms, and at your tables, which of those 5 terms can you most relate to in this time remaining? Let's have some fun with it. So, all right, let's do that.